Hello, and welcome to the Yolo County District Attorney's podcast series, The Chronicles of Justice. Today's episode will cover the topic of campus sexual assault. We are joined today by sexual assault survivor Yee Xiong, Yolo County District Attorney social worker Julia Hernandez, Director of the UCD Care Program Sarah Meredith, the Title IX Coordinator Wendi Delmendo, and Deputy District Attorney Amanda Zambor. Amanda, can you share a brief overview of the sexual assault case that we will be talking about today?
Absolutely. On July 9th of 2012, survivor Yee Xiong attended a party of some friends on campus, and as the party continued, she got very ill from drinking, and some friends took her upstairs to fall asleep in one of the beds upstairs. Later on in the evening, Ms. Xiong woke to some unknown person having sex with her without her consent. She was woken up by this and only later realized after this person got off of her that it was a friend of hers from school. She immediately reported to a professor the next morning and then eventually spoke to police a few days after that. Yee is probably one of the most resilient survivors that I've worked with in these types of cases. She came to multiple court dates, testified in multiple hearings, and even had to battle a civil lawsuit for defamation of character after the defendant already pled to assault in these charges. So she's been through quite a lot and come out speaking for other victims on the other side of this and really trying to get them help.
Okay, well thank you, Amanda. So Yee, what advice or words of wisdom would you like to share with other survivors?
Understand that you have options and rights. And a really important one for me is that I think other survivors should know is that to know how your justice looks like for you so that you can be successful in your healing process.
Tell us about the healing process for you so far.
The healing process is never certain. I have a lot of struggles every day as well. Sometimes I see brighter cloud linings, and sometimes I don't. But it's been very empowering for me. I've been able to find my voice within the struggle, and it helps me to know that other survivors are reaching out to me and saying, you know, you have been an inspiration for us, and, you know, we want to be just as strong as you.
Julia, tell us about your experience in working with Yee.
First thing that came to mind was wonderful. Wonderful as in meeting Yee, being around her, seeing her strength. Yee was always so gracious, always. She also was fortunate. She had a strong family to support her, and sometimes my clients don't have that.
What is different about these non-stranger rape cases as compared to some of your other cases?
Probably self-blame. So victims, survivors of rape often think, maybe I should have done something different, then I wouldn't have been raped. Other victims of crime may feel this way also. Maybe they shouldn't have been doing something, then maybe that crime would not have happened. But society reinforces the blame on rape victims. I tell my clients who have been sexually assaulted, this is not your fault. You did not ask someone to take advantage of you to rape you.
Okay, next we're going to go to Sarah Meredith, the director at the UC Davis Care Program. Sarah, what kind of support services are available to UC Davis students who've experienced sexual assault?
Well, UC Davis has several confidential resources available to students as well as staff, faculty, and other academic appointees who've experienced sexual assault as well as other issues around sexual violence. The CARE program is one of those confidential resources, and we do provide confidential advocacy, crisis intervention, accompaniment, assistance with academic or housing accommodations, safety planning. We also have counseling services for both students and employees that's available on campus.
Okay, how does the trauma of sexual assault impact the survivors your office works with?
Well, we see a wide variety of reactions to the trauma. So we see survivors that sometimes want to access support from friends or family members. They want to talk about it. They'll access counseling. They do choose to report to law enforcement or to the campus. And we also see survivors that don't want to talk about it and aren't interested in reporting or don't feel like they can go to their friends or family members. And in terms of how the impact is on them individually, that's also a pretty wide range of responses. So the impact might look like loss of memory of the assault or parts of the assault, nightmares, increased anxiety or somatic issues, so they might have stomach problems or migraines or headaches. Some survivors talk about the feeling that they couldn't move their body during the assault. And many survivors express that they want to try to forget what happened, and this might lead to some unhealthy coping strategies like drug or alcohol abuse or self-harm, such as cutting or burning, and sometimes suicidal ideation.
How does the dynamic of being assaulted by a non-stranger affect the trauma experienced by the survivor?
Well, many people have an idea of what a sexual assault looks like, and a lot of times that scheme really involves what I often say is the creepy guy in the bushes. And so when a sexual assault occurs where it is not that dynamic, it's actually somebody that is known to the survivor, it can cause some confusion, so it doesn't match up with what they thought a sexual assault would look like. So they may take some time to try to reconcile what happened to them with what they think a sexual assault is, which sometimes leads to delays in reporting. It can feel like betrayal, so we often hear survivors talk about feeling betrayed by the person who assaulted them. It was somebody that they thought that they could trust or that they were safe around.
Okay, what would you want our community to know about supporting survivors of sexual assault?
I would want the community to know that survivors really need to have the support of their friends and family and their community members. It is critical for their healing process. And be knowledgeable about the resources available. So if there are counseling services that are local or available, or rape crisis counseling centers such as the CARE program at UC Davis or Empower Yolo in Yolo County, that those services are accessible anytime to anybody who needs them, free of charge, and it is confidential.
Next, we'll go to Wendi Delmendo, the Title IX coordinator on campus. Wendi, can you tell us what is the Title IX?
Sure. Title IX is a federal statute, and it applies to educational institutions that receive federal funding. It stands for the proposition that institutions like UC Davis can't discriminate against people based on their gender. The university is directed to have a process in place to respond to both sexual harassment and sexual violence.
Okay. What is your role as the Title IX coordinator? How do you help your community members who report sexual violence?
The very first thing we do is connect our community members who make reports to confidential resources like the one Sarah just talked about. So out of the gate, the first thing we do is make sure that one of our community members who has experienced sexual violence knows about CARE. We want to make sure that the CARE advocate gets involved right away. One thing we often do is put no contact orders in place to make sure that there's no further communication between the parties. And in serious cases where we think that the accused might be a threat to our campus community, we will place the accused on interim suspension.
Thank you very much. How can sexual violence victims benefit from the result of a Title IX investigation?
When allegations of sexual violence are substantiated through an investigation, I'd like to think that the Title IX process can provide a sexual violence victim with a form of justice that's different than the form of justice that they can get through the criminal prosecution process. And the reason for that is because our procedures are so different than the criminal law process. For one thing, we have a different evidentiary standard of proof than is available through the criminal justice process. So in contrast to the standard of proof that requires evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, in the administrative process, our standard is preponderance of the evidence. So that is viewed as a substantially lower standard of proof than is required through the criminal process.
And now we'll go to Deputy District Attorney Amanda Zambor. Amanda, you seem to have a passion for these types of cases. Why?
I just feel that the victims in these types of cases, they're really underrepresented and underheard. Oftentimes, they feel like they can't come forward because they're going to be either re-victimized by having to live through it again, or treated poorly by law enforcement or a district attorney's office and not handling their cases appropriately. So when I started doing these cases, it was really kind of one of my focuses to let these victims have a voice and know that their cases were going to be treated appropriately.
And how are they different than other cases that you normally handle?
It's completely opposite of many of the other cases that I've dealt with. In these non-stranger sex assault cases, the defendants they're not the stranger in the bushes jumping out of a scary white van with no windows that's taking people off the streets. These are people that the victims know, usually trust. They're either friends or friends of friends, and they're educated, they're in school, they have jobs, and it's really hard for jurors to get over the fact that this person may have committed such a heinous crime. So you kind of have to approach it completely differently from the investigation side, from the prosecution side.
And why are these cases so challenging to prove?
Again, it kind of goes back to, these look like normal people. Is this person really a rapist? And community members, I don't think there's been a lot of education within the community that these things happen, and that it's not okay, that this is in fact a crime. It's not just two drunk college kids who made some bad choices. Those cases do exist, obviously, but when we're prosecuting them, these are the cases where somebody's completely incapacitated by alcohol that's not able to make a decision as to what happens with their body, and somebody they do these things to them anyways, knowing that they're not making a clear decision, that they're either passed out or so drunk that they can't even control themselves.
Okay, well, thank you very much, all of you. Are there any final thoughts that you would like to share?
One thing that I would like to add is that the Yolo County District Attorney's Office has really been kind of looking at these types of cases and changing the way that we're approaching them. We want to make sure that victims feel comfortable coming to our office, whether they're seeking prosecution or not, but that they're at least feel comfortable saying, they're not going to re-victimize me in this office. I will have a voice. I will get a say in how my case is handled. And really knowing that our office is taking a good look at these cases.
I would just like to echo Amanda's sentiment, and on behalf of the University of California, let your listeners know that the university takes allegations of sexual violence very seriously. If any of your listeners know someone who has experienced sexual violence at the university, I encourage them to get in touch with the representatives at their campus.
And I would like to just add that if there are survivors out there listening right now, if you want to talk to somebody just to get information about support services or just to be able to vent about what happened or think about options, even if it doesn't include reporting, that you can contact the care office at UC Davis. There's a website that the university hosts that's called sexualviolence.ucdavis.edu. And on that website lists all of the confidential resources on campus as well as confidential resources off campus.
I also cannot speak about Yee's case and everything that happened in that prosecution and working with Yee without thanking Jackie Lira from the UCD Care Program. We work really closely with the UCD Care Program on the UCD whenever there's a sexual assault on campus, and I've been fortunate enough to work with her and Sarah, and we work very well together. So we were a team for Yee's case, definitely.
My closing thoughts are for survivors to not be afraid of asking for help and accepting help when help is offered, because you can't go through it alone all by yourself, and you need help, and that's the only way that I got through it all. So ask for help and accept help.
Okay, thank you all for being here today. And for more information, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or go to yoloda.org.